Thank you all for joining us this evening. And this is the public meeting for the Columbia Village Neighborhood Improvements Project. My name is Amalia Andrews, and I will be the facilitator tonight. We will first get started with introductions from our project team. So this is the order we're going to go in, team. We actually didn't specifically go through this, or maybe we did and I just forgot, but we'll start with Edinson, followed by Christy, followed by Brent, followed by Meg, and followed by Mr. Kemmerer. Okay, let's go ahead and kick it off with introductions. Edinson, please.
Thank you, Malia. My name is Edinson Bautista. I work at the Ada County Highway District as a senior transportation planner and project manager for the Columbia Village Neighborhood Improvement Project.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christy Foltz-Ulrich, and I also work at ACHD in our communications department.
And my name is Brent Crowther. I'm with Kimley Horn & Associates, and we're the consultant helping ACHD on this project.
Thank you.
My name is Meg McCarthy, and I work in planning with Edinson, and I'm the bicyclist and pedestrian program coordinator at ACHD.
Okay, Mr. Kemmerer, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to think I was waiting for the camera to come up. My name is Kendall Kemmerer, Ada County Highway District in the traffic department, traffic engineer for this project. So first off, thank you everybody who's participating in this tonight. So
yes, thank you all for joining us this evening. So just a reminder how to engage with us tonight using Zoom. This is very much an open meeting and a casual discussion. We're really looking forward to a great conversation with you tonight. The format of the meeting tonight is we will present the details of the project, and then at the end of that, we will offer an opportunity for all of our attendees to ask questions. So you can utilize the raise your hand feature, and the raise your hand feature, actually, is that turned on here? I'm sorry, maybe I am confused with webinar. Let's see, raise your hand. Is raise your hand working, Olivia? It is. Okay, so if you hover over your name, oh, reactions, thank you. So at the bottom of your screen, it says there's a button that says reactions with this circle and a plus sign. If you click that, you can hit raise your hand, and that will allow you to kind of go in the queue, and I will see your name there that you want to talk to us verbally, and then I will call on you to go ahead and offer your question or comment. You're also welcome to use the chat button at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to type something in. And if for some reason neither of those work out, we will still be accommodating. So you're welcome to unmute yourself and we'll still continue with the great conversation. I think we'll go ahead and proceed. I will share with you that we are recording tonight's presentation, and the purpose of that is to help us with documentation. And we will also post a recording of this meeting tonight on the project website. In the chat feature, we are going to post a link, and if you'll see that, if you'll click down on chat at the bottom of your screen, that link is a sign-in sheet. So, you know, a lot of times when we would meet in person, you would join us at the meeting and you would sign a sign-in sheet. This is a digital sign-in sheet for us for you to share with us who you are and how you're affiliated with this project. Not required for you to fill out, but it's a great way for us to connect with you moving forward. Okay, Edinson, I think it's time for you to share your screen and we'll dive into the presentation. Thank you again to all of our attendees for coming.
Thank you, Amelia. And I will proceed sharing my screen. Let me move you guys over here. So perfect. So I can see this. I'll just close this. Emilia, is it okay if I close the? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So perfect. So let me start this presentation with welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's virtual public meeting. As mentioned, this is the Columbia Village Neighborhood Improvement Project, and we will go over what we call the project story map and surveys for this meeting. In this story map, you will find information about the concept study, including the background for this project, as well as findings from the first public outreach, the proposed improvements for this for the Columbia Village and Holcomb area. Also, we will go over the surveys and finally the project schedule. And this is our second public outreach, public involvement for this concept study, and it will be open from July 14th to July 28th. The purpose of this virtual meeting is to allow us, the project team, to showcase the proposed improvements and address any questions or concerns that the community might have. Now that you had a chance to review the alternatives. Overall, our goal is to present the proposal improvement along the corridor, including different options at specific locations, and collect more public feedback on those proposals. The feedback will later be used to refine those concept studies, concept exhibits, and prepare a final recommendation. And I will start by scrolling down through the story map, showcasing some of the information that we're presenting. So we start with a welcome and information regarding the public meeting, but then going into more in depth regarding the project background. The concept study recommends improvement along the following streets and paths. This includes the Holcomb Road, Bergerson Street, the pathway over the New York Canal, Eastgate Drive, Mimosa Way, Yam Hill Road, Lake Forest Drive, Quamash Way, and Grand Forest Drive. In this image that we display here, it shows us the project limits and the streets that I just described just here. Through this concept study, we seek to engage with the community through a robust public outreach to identify those bicycle and pedestrian needs and improvements that align with the neighborhood vision, as well as ACH's continued effort to support the cycling and walking community and support them as a viable mode of transportation. These improvements includes, but are not limited to, chair lane markings, bike lane, sidewalk, curb ramps, pedestrian crossing, intersection improvements, and pathway improvements. All these improvements will aim to emphasize the Holcomb and Columbia Village as a bicycle-friendly corridor, as well as meet American with Disability Act standards and current pedestrian standards. And overall, this is an effort to complete the bicycle and pedestrian network. Scrolling a little bit down to the next section, entering into what we heard from the community, what we heard section. In here, we present a summary of the first public outreach that we conducted for this project. This was done back in March 2022, and it was open for 2 weeks, in where we received a total of 321 comments from 92 participants. These comments were broken down in bicycle-related comments, pedestrian-related comments, crossing-related comments, and other. In this slide, we show a summary of those comments. Some of the location of high interest included Amity Road and Holcomb Road intersection, the Lake Forest Drive segment, and the Grand Forest Drive segment. We received additional comments outside the project limits, like the ones regarding Amity Road and Federal Way and Boise Ave, which we will be shared internally inside ACHD for further review. As you can see in this story map, we included links to a full summary of the survey results, where you can find more details regarding the comments submitted in the first public outreach, as well as a link to the comment map that we originally displayed on that first public outreach. You will see a map with those comments in there. Entering into the next section, the possible improvements. In here we display we displayed the improvements that we're recommending for along this corridor. This include wayfinding signage, and in this image, you can see what those elements look like. The top one, we call them the green wayfinding sign, and it displays destinations and distances that the direction would take to get there. As well as our branding sign, where ACHC is trying to identify or brand those locations that we consider low stress corridors for bicycle usage. Moving to the next improvements, we have on-street wayfinding sign. These are share lane markings, or you might commonly heard about sharrows. These are placed at streets of low volumes and low speeds, where it would emphasize the presence of cyclists along the street. Moving to the next improvements, we have bike lanes as well, which are more commonly known within the community, and they provide a separate space from the travel lane that it's dedicated for bike users. This is example over by Eagle, but certainly that's what it looks like. Then going to the next improvement, we have enhanced crossings. In here, you will see what we call the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. These are activated by the push of a push button, and it provides a flashing of the two signals that emphasize the fact that a pedestrian is about to cross the street. And we also have the pedestrian hyper beacon, which at this moment you can actually see something like this at Amity Road and Holcomb Road, where you can push the button and it activates a signal that requires vehicles to stop. The other improvement that we're exploring through this concept study is the pavement marking, additional pavement marking consideration. This includes other components like we show in this image has green paint. So that's something that ACHD is exploring to implement more within the Ada County. And finally, entering into the shared use pathway. These are improvements to those pathways that are outside the street. Typically within they are 10 feet wide, and it allows the use of a mixed use, the pedestrians and the cyclists along each of this route. Typically they're paved with asphalt or concrete, so that's something that we're envisioning for this project as well. And now jumping into the concept design for comments, and I will give the time to Brent to provide more details on what we're proposing and information regarding this concept study. And I will stop sharing my screen right now to give it time to Brent.
Great, thank you, Edinson. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so the story map, if you're able to see this, but I'm going to navigate using a PDF, just helps me to be able to zoom in and out a little bit more. Edinson reviewed some of the potential concepts that are being considered within the study limits. And what we've done now is demonstrate with this very conceptual exhibit how those concepts would be applied to these roadways. You can see here on the right is a map of the study area. Then you can see the legend items. We have the green dash in a sidewalk and bike lane improvements, and then a blue dash, two-way bike lane improvements, red shared use path improvements, and then the orange on-street wayfinding, the blue dot intersection improvements, and then the yellow diamond rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And so we've applied that beginning up here at the north at Boise Avenue. We're proposing to improve the sidewalk currently so that we provide sidewalks on both sides of the street. And then in this area here between Bergeson connecting over to Boise down to near the canal, proposing on-street wayfinding improvements. And you can see an example of the on-street wayfinding would be signs like here with the branding, the green signs, as well as the sign toppers. And then as we extend further down, crossing the New York Canal down to Amity Road, proposing a shared use path. And then again, we have sidewalk and bike lane improvements, two-way bike lane improvements, on-street wayfinding, and then for the duration, we have the two-way bike lane improvements. And I'll show you on the next page a little bit more in depth of those improvements. It's hiding my, how do I get to the next page here? Okay, there we go. Okay, so the maps, the other 4 pages, we have inset maps that show a bit more detail, the specific type of improvements, and then we have a detailed exhibit for selected locations. So here, map number 1 is improvements from Federal Way to Highway 21. And here you can see primarily proposing two-way bike lane improvements, and that would striped bike lanes on both sides of the roadway. And then at selected intersections, we're showing 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And you saw those on page 1, what those look like, but they're essentially crossing devices that will flash at a rapid pace when activated to provide some notification to the motorists that there is a pedestrian waiting to cross the road, and anticipation that that motorist will then yield to that pedestrian. Here at the intersection of Lake Forest Drive and Quamish Way, you can see we have intersection improvements, and if we look down to the down below, we have a couple of different concepts that can be considered, and we'd like your input on. Option 1 is a standard T intersection, and we are proposing to modify the intersection to remove the large sweeping radius high-speed curves to more of a traditional T intersection. And so you can see implementing a buffer area to utilize some of that pavement so that we slow the vehicles and we define more the vehicle path and make more of a defined location for the pedestrian crossings. And we would have pedestrian crossings on all legs of the intersection. And then you can see here we have the bike lanes on all legs of the intersection as well. Option 2 in this location would be what we call a mini roundabout. And that would be to direct vehicles, provides a traffic calming, and vehicles would circle around the roundabout to be able to make the movement to go to the left or to the right. Again, showing the bike lanes with the buffer areas to use up some of that large pavement area. And the third option is what we call a protected T intersection. And here we're using some of the green pavement markings to fully signify the location where the bicyclists should be, signifying to the motorists for all of the crossing areas, enhancing the visibility of the bicyclists through the intersection. And you can see here, we have if somebody approaching from the left, they would enter the lane here, and there's a small separation here. This gray area is a raised concrete island, and the bicyclist would come here, and then he would be able to wait here for his turn to cross the road, and then proceed crossing, and then could continue either to cross here or proceed in the bike lane and continue their journey down the road. So we have those three options, and are looking through the survey your input on the pros and the cons and the benefits that you see for each of those options.
So Brent, before you go into the next map, I think it would be a great time for us to do our poll. So for all of our participants, we have set up a poll and it's going to show up on your screen. And we're curious what you think about this first map that we've presented for you today. Just 1 second and it should pop up on your screen. So I see that a poll has popped up on my screen and it's asking us a couple of questions pertaining to map 1. Which option would you prefer for Grand Forest Drive and Quamashway intersection? And we'll wait just a second to let you participate in that. And then question 2 pertaining to this same poll is which option would you prefer for Lake Forest and Quamish intersection?
Will you be sharing these poll results during the meeting?
Yes, we are. So we're going to end the poll in just a minute, and then we're going to publish the poll results so that you can see what those of you on the call with us today have shared with us. Now, if something that you're interested in for these particular areas is not showing up in the poll, or even if it is, we would like you to take our survey on the project website and you can offer some additional suggestions that way. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now, and then we're going to share the results with all of you. Okay, I see the results on my screen. Does everyone see the results on their screen of the poll? So you can see that option 2 has the highest ranking for those of you on the call with us today, which is the mini roundabout. And that's for Grand Forest Drive and Quamish Way. Thank you, Brent. And then for number 2, also the mini roundabout for Lake Forest Drive and Quamish Way. Thank you. Okay, Brent, I think we can go ahead and move into map number 2.
Okay, great. Okay, map number 2 shows proposed bikeway and pedestrian improvements from Federal Way here on my left to Highway 21 here on my right. And through this section, well, it's the same section we saw in 1, but showing a little bit more illustration on what the bike lane improvements may look like. You can see here the Lake Forest Drive section would have a bike lane on both sides of the road with a parking area on one side of the road. And that would be the Lake Forest Drive section along here where my mouse is. The Grand Forest Drive cross section would have a bike lane on both sides of the road, separated by a buffer area, separating the travel lane from the bike lane. And that would be on both sides of Grand Forest Drive. Amelia, do we have a polling question for map 2?
We do. We're going to go ahead and start that. Thank you, Brent. Okay, so the polling question should have shown up on your screen for map 2. And the first question is, do you like the proposed improvements for Lake Forest Drive between Yamhill Road and Quamish Way? Yes or no? And question 2 regarding map 2. Do you like the proposed improvements for Grand Forest Drive west of Quamish Way between Highway 21 and Quamish Way? So we'll wait just a short time for you to answer yes or no to those 2 questions pertaining to map 2. And again, if you have any additional feedback, you're welcome to provide that to us through the project website. And we'll go ahead and post a link to that. Actually, we did in the chat, so you'll be able to see that. So I think we'll go ahead and end the poll and publish the results for everyone to see. So it does look like that most of you did choose yes as your option for both question 1 and 2. There were a few no's, but they're mostly yeses on those 2 questions. Okay. All right, so now we'll exit out of that and move into map 3.
Map 3 is showing the proposed intersection improvements from Lake Forest Drive to Boise Avenue, as you can see here in this map on the left. We have a couple of options to get your input on here at the Holcomb Road, Amity Road intersection. Option 1, again, is a standard T intersection with a traffic signal to facilitate crossing of Amity Road. And you can see that illustrated here, where we'd have a traffic signal and the crosswalks. Option 2 is to construct a roundabout at the intersection of Amity Road and Holcomb Road, as illustrated here on the right. And that would be a single lane roundabout with landscaping and buffer area. And a vehicle, as they're entering, if they wanted to make a left turn, they would enter from the bottom, and they would circle the roundabout and then exit to the left. Vehicle wanting to go through from the left to the right would enter the roundabout, follow through, make and continue on their way. So Amelia, we can ask questions about map 3.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start the poll now. Okay, so for map 3, we have one question. Which option would you prefer for the Holcomb Road and Amity Road intersection? So option 1, option 2, or I don't like any of these options. And again, if you have some additional feedback pertaining to what you're seeing, you're welcome to put that into the survey that's on the project website, which is in the chat. And we will get to your questions that you're asking in the chat as soon as we're finished going through these.
Can you take a question just on the what you're asking, because your option 1 doesn't match up to your map?
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe we just have an error, Olivia. It's possible. So let's assume that option 1 is pertaining to the standard T intersection with traffic signal, as we see on the map that Brent is circling around.
Okay.
And option 2 is single lane roundabout. Let's assume that. Sorry for that error. Thank you so much for calling attention to that. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. And it looks like option 1, that there's more preference for that option, the standard T intersection with the traffic signal. Okay, Brent, let's go ahead and move on to the next map.
Map number 4 shows the cross section of that same area for proposed bikeway and pedestrian improvements from Lake Forest Drive to Boise Avenue. In here, North Holcomb Road cross section, in this area here, we would have 2 travel lanes with bike lanes on both sides of the road. For the Eastgate Drive down here, because of the narrower, how do you say that, Amelia? Narrower.
Or more narrow.
Or more narrow
Mhm.
cross section, we are suggesting what we call a shared lane markings, and that would be wayfinding in adjacent to the on-street parking. And because of the street width, the narrower street width, there would not be room for dedicated bike lanes through this section.
Okay, are we ready to start the poll, Brent?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so for map 4, 2 questions. Do you like the proposed improvements for Holcomb Road from Boise Avenue to the New York Canal? Yes or no? And question 2, do you like the proposed improvements for Holcomb Road between Amity Road and Eastgate Drive? Yes or no? Thank you for everyone participating. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So for question 1 pertaining to map 4, there's quite a few positive results for the proposed improvements for Holcomb Road from Boise Avenue to New York Canal. And for question 2, definitely more yeses than nos, but still some that are not in favor of the improvements of Holcomb Road between Amity Road and Eastgate, but definitely more in favor. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. Sorry, Brent, are there any more details on the maps you had to show?
Well, that is the end of the concept.
Okay. Okay, so we do have 2 last questions we would like to ask you. So we're gonna go ahead and share those on the screen for everybody. And we're just curious about your interest in the project and what area you're most interested in. So are you a resident, cyclist, commuter, business owner, pedestrian, community representative? And then what area are you most interested in? Like Forest Drive, Grand Forest Drive, Holcomb Road, Eastgate Drive, Amity Road, or Yamhill Road? And if you don't see one that we've listed, that's okay. There's not really an option for me to provide an other and for you to type something in during these poll questions. So you're welcome to share that with us in the chat or even complete our survey, whatever you prefer. Thank you very much for all of you participating. This is great. So just answering those 2 questions. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and end the poll on this one. Thank you, and we'll share the results. So several residents and pedestrians. The only, looks like the only option that wasn't completed was, it doesn't seem we have any business owners joining us tonight, but definitely others, so that's great. And it looks like we definitely have interest in all the areas that we've presented with Lake Forest Drive having the most interest. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and stop sharing. And Edinson, did you have more details you wanted to share on the project website, or are we ready to move into questions?
Yeah, and let me start by sharing my screen once again. That way I can display this, the last part of the story map. So as mentioned by Brent and Amalia, below each of the sections, you will find a survey with the similar questions that you just saw there on the polling. Additionally, you will have the option that if you want to provide additional information or something that doesn't align with what you envision for each of the routes, you can provide further information as you start clicking, and it will activate, for example, other options. You can actually submit your comments, questions, concerns regarding the project. In addition to that component, we have sorry if you guys are seeing yourself there. In addition to your comments, you will have the option to provide even further comments regarding the overall project in regards to if we miss anything, if there's something else you guys would like to see. Certainly it helps us if it targets a specific location, but at the end, it's always nice to have those final thoughts regarding the project. and then all the demographic contact information that you can fill in just to get even more information on the project in the future, or just to provide public record for this project. After going through that survey, we go into the project schedule. At this moment of time, we are in the second public outreach and in the process of with the intent of refining that concept exhibit and capturing more feedback. With that, we will, as mentioned, we will do a final recommendation that will be put in front of the ACHD Commission, where there's going to be another opportunity to see that final recommendation provide further feedback on what the community want to see there, and then in an opportunity for the ACHD Commission, its officials, to hear your thoughts on the project. And finally, if you didn't have an opportunity to provide input, certainly we're going to the next stage of the Q&A portion of it, but certainly if there's any questions, any concerns, anything that you would like to share with us, and you want to contact directly to me, you can do it through the contact us option through a project email using this email, or calling us directly, and I will be able to have an open conversation with you regarding anything on the project, and certainly answering any questions. And with that, that's the end of the story map, and I will turn my time again to Melia.
Thank you. So we have had a number of questions come in through the chat. Thank you so much for all of those. We will take some time to go through all of those. We're going to start with a couple of them, but in the meantime, if you'd like to ask a question verbally and have a desire to do so, please use the reaction button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand, and then after I get through a couple of the questions in the chat, we'll turn the time over to you to ask the question verbally. So I'm going to start with the first question in the chat from Michelle. For those who have a visual impairment or are colorblind, how can they participate or get further explanations on the proposals? Edinson, Christy, what would you like to share regarding Michelle's question?
Thank you for your comment. Certainly, we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate on this type of outreach effort. So, to participate, you're more than welcome to reach out to us to request printed version of the story map, and we would be able to send it to you. That way you could provide written comments, or as well, you can contact us directly through the contact us contact information there, and you can actually reach me directly to talk about the project, so I can capture it. We can capture your comments regarding what your concerns, any particular comment you have regarding the project.
Thank you, Edinson. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question in the chat. And Brent, I might need you to pull up the maps. Are any of these options going to be available for Amity and South Holcomb? Amity and South Holcomb. What do we show in that area? And this was right around map 1 when this question came through.
Map 1?
This was right around the time that map 1 came through. And this is from Linda. Linda, is there any clarification you'd like to give us verbally? You're welcome to unmute your microphone.
All right. I think the roundabout option came up a little bit later.
Yes, that's correct.
I think, yeah. So those, you were talking about Lake Forest. And then you brought up the fact that it's South Holcomb and in Amity. That's a problem area.
Do you want to pull up that map a little bit more, Brent, just so we can kind of talk through it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I think as you mentioned, the question was submitted when we were talking about map 1. And then we got into it on map 3, where we're showing option 1 is a standard signalized intersection, and map 2 is a roundabout option.
So do you think we answered the questions, Linda? I see you shaking your head.
Yes, that's
Okay,
most helpful.
okay, great. All right. And again, if any of our participants have a desire to ask a question verbally, you're more than welcome to do so, but I'm going to keep going through the questions in the chat. So let's see. There's a concern from Philip with the Lake Forest section, is the amount of traffic the soccer fields get and folks parking along that street interfering with bikes, bike safety, such as when people open their car doors. Do you want to maybe pull up that area, Brent, near Lake Forest?
Yes.
So the soccer fields and a lot of traffic in that area. So there's concern with that.
I think we're talking about the north side.
And Philip, feel free to unmute your phone or your speaker if you, or sorry, your microphone if you'd like to share any more details.
Yeah, and we are in recognizing that there is a big soccer draw, field demand for parking. And that's why it's been suggested that we retain the parking and we not remove the parking.
Yeah, hey, this is Bill. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know if there's any way to like widen the street and make it kind of like diagonal pull-in parking that might improve the situation, or I don't know how else to make it better. But
yeah,
currently, like that cross-section drawing basically looks like what it currently is, and it just doesn't seem very safe when you're riding on that side of the street.
Are you, and you're specifically talking about Lake Forest, right?
Yeah, you nailed the location. Yeah.
Yeah, here. Yeah, and part of the, and correct me, Edinson, if you want to clarify, but we've been trying to design the project within the current curb limits, so we don't end up in a full reconstruct type project, reconfiguring the space that we do have. So trying to repurpose rather than reconstruct and widen the improvements, and that's why we haven't proposed any additional width to be there, but certainly noted. We do have the bike lane. I think this is a cross section you're talking about where we have the on-street parking on one side of the road, and then the two drive lanes, and then the bike lane width. We are proposing a full width bike lane. Edinson, do you remember the dimensions on the bike lane? Was it a full 6?
Yes, Brent. So you're right. You're correct in all you say. Currently, and I noticed some of the comments related to this, like person, how it differs. At this moment, the way we went into the field, we did a lot of measurements, and we noticed that the current bike lane on the north side, it's below the 4 feet standard that ACHD managed, which actually is 5 feet. That we're trying to implement more throughout whenever we install or add bike lane. So with the purpose of reconfiguring and accommodating a safe environment for every user of this corridor, we're trying to reconfigure this roadway to make sure that the bike lanes meet those 5 feet width with the addition of parking because of the high need on the Simplet Sport Complex, and having a minimum of 10 feet travel lanes on this section. Certainly, there's at this moment in time, our interest, just like Brent mentioned, is to work within the limits of the curb of the current pavement condition. But if the public is interested to keep the 11 feet, for example, we would have to see different alternatives to make that accommodation. Certainly, it will require a little bit more time, but something that if the public's interested on, they can provide feedback on it.
Thank you.
Would it be possible to maybe move the bike lanes, like move that bike lane to the other side of the street so that they're kind of like opposite of the parking and both on the other side.
So you're suggesting a two-way bike lane on one side of the road instead
On the
of
north side, yeah.
yeah. So the challenge with a two-way bike lane is you need a physical separation between the travel lane and the other bike lane. Otherwise, that can cause confusion.
Will you
for the
clarify, Brent,
motorists.
what you mean by a physical separation, just to simplify it a bit further?
Yeah, physical separation would be like a small raised curb or some delineators, probably a 2 to 3 foot buffer width with some physical delineator. Otherwise, you would cause confusion with a bicycle basically facing traffic, or riding in and facing traffic, which can be confusing to both the motorists and the bicyclists. And we don't quite have enough width to create a physical barrier. Plus, accommodating the other driveways and things like that are make a physical barrier a bit of a challenge.
Brent, I have one quick comment there. Not that it'd be enough to create a physical barrier, but the soccer fields and baseball fields, there are a ton of berm area, for lack of a better word. You have 50, 60 feet that I'd rather see you cut and move those areas in than take the lanes down to 10 feet for the vehicles. Because in the winter out here, it is very messy with the windy roads, and cars slide 2 to 3 feet as they're going around those curves. So if you're going to shorten those widths of those car lanes, that's going to make it even more dangerous just for vehicle travel, especially during the winter. But if you move in, say, the soccer field berms and everything, get additional 5 feet there, then you could add your width to the bike lanes without much intrusion on the commute and traffic.
Are you suggesting to move the curb line, or are you suggesting to put almost a separate pathway up?
You could move the curb line. Yeah, just kind of move in, because from any section around the soccer field or baseball field, you have a good 60, 70 feet plus that you could use that area. And maybe because it's just each one has a big berm that every family that parks there has to walk over and then walk additional 30, 40 feet to whatever the closest soccer field is. So there's plenty of room there that can be used. If you're just looking to add 6 feet, that sidewalk, that whole entire sidewalk on the interior portion, or better described as the outerior of the sports complex, could be used to give that distance without affecting other traffic flow.
Okay, thank you, Travis. That's really helpful. And we'll go ahead and make a note of that suggestion and consider that. I want to be sure that we get through a few more questions. So I'm going to go back to the chat to Thomas's question, and then Linda has a question and their hand raised. So I'll move over to Linda after Thomas's question. So will there be improvements on Lake Forest Drive between Quamish Way and Highway 21? Brent, will you highlight those areas, please?
Yeah, so the question is, will there be improvements
on Lake Forest Drive between Quamish and Highway 21?
Maybe I can help
this
there,
stretch here.
Emily and Brent.
Yeah, go ahead, Ensign.
So the reason you don't see it and I think the comment goes towards the east side, Brent, going from Quamish to Highway 21, I think.
Oh, okay.
So it's on the right on Lake Forest, so it goes north of where you are showing there. So that section, it's outside the limits, but I think there might be, if we can get clarification if he refers towards that segment or the other segment, that would be the best.
Thomas, any clarification for us?
Yeah, that's correct. We would be talking about the going east. So if you see on that map where it says Trailwind Elementary School, Lake Forest Drive goes in front of that, and then it keeps going east all the way until Highway 21. So I just wasn't sure if there was any improvements on that road. So because obviously I see there's one for Grand Forest, but I just don't see anything for Lake Forest.
Totally understood. And yeah, so at this moment that's not being evaluated as part of this project, but certainly we saw a couple comments come towards that location that will be shared internally just that it's not part of this limit at this time.
But we'll
I
be
understand
sure.
now. You're talking about this section here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's correct.
Okay, we'll be sure and make a note of that. Linda, I'm going to move back to you. It looks like you had a comment in the chat about the trucks that are driving down Amity. Any further clarification you wanted to provide there? And don't forget to unmute.
Still a rookie
Hey.
at all these.
No, you're doing great.
I think the roundabout, because I mean, I've talked to ACHD on several things up here in this area, and I think the roundabout, I can't even imagine the roundabout there because there isn't a separate. The South Holcomb ends at Amity. There is no driving on the other side of Amity, on the north side of Amity. So, and I think that's what that red line means, is that there's no driving in that section, or are you guys going to put something over the New York Canal, or are we just talking all about the bike paths?
You're talking about this section here.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are proposing to make improvements. So that's a shared use path that would be bicycles and pedestrians only.
Okay.
There wouldn't be no vehicle traffic through there.
Because I was just wondering how a roundabout works with only 3 roads coming in then. With
Yeah,
traffic.
see, we just have a 3-legged roundabout. There is no fourth leg.
Yeah, and then I would like to make a comment. I mean, we walk all around this neighborhood, and the comment about the bike lane and Lake Forest, Mimosa area, doors opening, kids can get hurt on bikes on that particular section. So if there was I can't remember if Edison said that the lanes are gonna get wider, or if there would be a buffer that you could put, not a physical, but some sort of wider bike path that would allow the cyclist to move more towards the street side, the driving side. That might help there, but I don't know. You guys are the experts. So.
Those are great comments, Linda, and we'll be sure and make a note of those. Any further comments from Edison or Brent on that, or should we move on to the next question?
Just clarifying, Edison is suggesting, as he explained before, it would be widening the bike lane that is there now and reducing the travel lane widths to expand the space that is available for the bicyclist. I'm not clear as to what your suggestion was about moving. Can you clarify what your other proposal was?
Are you talking to me, or are you talking?
Yes, Linda.
Yes.
So what I was trying to say is, so if the bike lane gets bigger, then there's
wider
a little space to work with the doors opening and everything like that. So, and if you can figure out some way to not let drivers pass you on the right when you're trying to make a left at Mimosa, that would be a wonderful idea.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's helpful, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the verbal comment from N caller. Please excuse me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, but go ahead and ask your question if you will.
Yeah, I was just going to comment about when Edison was talking about the width of the bike lanes. I ride a bicycle, not as much as I commute, and I'm sure whoever's riding bikes more is going to turn this into a heated discussion, which I'm not wanting to go through, but having a wider bike lane, I'm not understanding that too well, because most of the time when I'm on the road, the people that I see on the bikes, on bicycles, in the bike lanes, they're usually right on the white line, and making a 5-foot wide bike lane and shortening the width of the vehicles driving, I'm not wrapping around that. I don't see how that makes sense. I almost feel like we need to make the bike lanes less wide, and maybe make the whole lane a white stripe so that they can stay on it, because it just, I don't know, there's something about that white stripe that seems to be the place where bikers seem to travel, and they don't travel on the lane itself, which makes it, I think, a traffic hazard.
If I can maybe address that first, I think perhaps what you're observing, and I don't know the specific circumstances where you're thinking, but bicyclists need, we call it the functional width. They need at least about 3 feet, just to accommodate the handlebars and everything. And then they, with the pedals and such, they like to be at least a foot away from any face of curb. So that way we are at least talking about 4 feet. And then sometimes if you have a curb and gutter, they don't like to be riding in the gutter pan, right? And so 5 feet is the minimum width to provide the necessary 3 feet, plus you have that additional maybe 6 inches on each side to provide that flexibility. Anything narrower in that really starts to cramp the bicyclists, and that's where you may see them start riding towards the street.
Hey, Brent, it's Kendall here. Yeah, I was going to kind of chime in on that too. Yeah, the 5 foot width for a bike lane is ACHD's minimum standard that we'd like, and I think part of the goal on this is the bike lanes, and Edison, correct me on this, I think the bike lanes we have out there are not 5 feet yet. So that's one of the goals with this project, is to get that 5 foot bike lane. I mean, that's just kind of standard with all of our projects when we have the opportunity.
You're totally right, Kendall. At this area, at least the north side, it's the minimum is 3, and the biggest and the wider is like 3.5. So it's not wide enough for, like Brent and Kendall were explaining, for accommodating a safe environment for cyclists.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Anita's comment in the chat, followed by Travis's comment in the chat, and then we'll have Mike provide his verbal comment. So Anita's comment in the chat: the proposed changes for Lake Forest seem to represent what we currently have. What will be different? Do you want to maybe highlight some of that, Brent, for us? What's going to be different at Lake Forest?
Yeah, I think that's what we've clarified previously, that the bike lanes are being widened to a standard 5 foot width.
Okay. The next comment is from Travis pertaining to kind of the voting. Has ACHD ever considered ring voting? Something may win because there are many options, but only one choice. So if you drop the lowest picked option, then maybe a person would choose something else over that over the option that appeared to the most popular. So thank you for that suggestion, Travis, and we'll be sure and consider that as we move forward. Mike, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you to verbally go ahead and provide your comment or ask a question.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, there's a couple questions within this, within what I'm about to ask.
Sure.
The first one is about the crossing lights for the pedestrians and everything. Is it going to be besides the flashing, is it also going to be audible for people with a vision impairment so they know that they can cross safely?
I see Kendall giving the thumbs up. I think it is. We try to make it ADA accessible. All the facilities that we're installing and improving will be ADA accessible. American with Disability Act accessible.
Yeah, and it's Kendall here. Yeah, and with all of our projects now, signals, THBs, RFBs, things like that. Yeah, we're adding the audible pedestrian signal with that through what we call APS. So that should be part of this. If it's not, we'll make sure it is.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Mike?
Okay. Second part, from when this original project started, a lot of it was from both sides, but it was also hitting Highway 21 from also Lake Forest to include more crosswalks. Why has the project been reduced just to around the ball field and more of the bike paths and stuff like that than more of the crosswalks from like Lake Forest all the way to Highway 21.
Sorry, Mike, can you repeat that question? I just want to make sure I capture it correctly.
So when this project first came around, it was supposed to be all the way from Federal Way all the way down to from Lake Forest all the way to the Highway 21, and then backside of what do you say, Grand Forest also. But now it seems like it's just been reduced to around the ball field, kind of a project. So why has that been changed?
And I can answer that question. So, as we started to from the start of the project, we identified this route based on our roadways to bikeway master plan. So that's where a lot of this current alignment came from. So that's why probably the limits are there. I don't know where would that been shown before, but certainly those are the limits that we have shown in our integrated fire work plan and our roadways to bikeway master plan so far.
Well, I understand. Okay, so the project for the pedestrian part of it was added to this bikeway plan. And this was kind of my fear was when this was the pedestrian part being added, that the pedestrian part just being reduced a little bit to for the lack of crosswalks that are actually on Lake Forest and Grand Forest. So that's what I'm kind of confused about, because and I was afraid of that was going to happen, that it's going to get reduced to where it was mostly bike paths, which I don't have a problem with that. But the pedestrian part where you have no crosswalk going over from where Lake Forest to the rec center is, and then part of coming in from Highway 21 into Lake Forest, there's no crosswalks to go across there either. And that's, I mean, there's quite a few pedestrians that actually walk that and use that what you call it, the rec center. And so now it's just been kind of like, it's not part of the plan anymore. So I'm just kind of confused what happened.
I think Meg had wanted to jump in for a second.
Yeah, I can hop in super quickly. So the way that we are building out our bikeway projects is we're really trying to zoom out and look at them as a whole and look at it as an active transportation network. And so this is a small piece of the network, but it doesn't mean that we're just going to bail and be like, oh, we fixed it and it's great. We'll keep building on top of it. And then I think Kendall can talk a little bit more about the warrants for when we'll paint a crossing and create a crossing. But I think because like I'm really glad that you're talking about the rec center, Mike. That's really helpful information to have and make sure that we are making, like, it makes sense. If you're going to the rec center, you're probably an active person and like are going to be walking or biking there, right? But for some of the other areas, because it's low volume, low speed roadways, there might not, and because it's residential, there might not be attractors there. That might be why it wouldn't meet the warrants for a crossing, but that doesn't mean that we would never put one there. It's just kind of like, this is the main artery of the active transportation network, and then like everything else will expand out of there.
Thank you, Meg. And Mike, what I'd like to share with you too is take some time to connect with us even further in the chat, or even Edinson would be more than happy, as he mentioned, to have more discussion with you offline. We are at time, but we're not going to stop. I want to be sure and get through a few more questions. So let's do that. And Mike, we are happy to connect with you offline for further discussion.
Okay, that'd be perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so one question from Linda: why is this referred as the Columbia Village Improvements Project when the roads on the map impact Oregon Trail Heights, Ridgemont subdivisions? And how did kind of the name come about, Edinson? And was there any consideration or of changing it?
Thank you, Malia. Yeah, so that came out of our Road to Bikeway. Certainly, our intent is to capture. We can kind of trying to figure out a name as we go along. And the Columbia Village, because a lot of the project is focusing in that section. Certainly, it extends, and as we start looking into more detail, we will look into. But for this project, we decided just because of the amount of improvements that we're looking at in this area specifically.
Thank you, Edinson. Okay, N Color made a note in the chat. I believe the proposed crosswalks on Lake Forest at the Rec Center, Quamish, and Mimosa are going to create more problems, as most of these areas have curves on the road that could create traffic accidents. And then Holcomb and Amity needs a storm drain installed at this intersection as well. So we'll be sure and make a note of those comments. Is there anything you'd like to add, Edinson or Brent, or we'll just make a note of those comments?
I think before and as it gets into design, sight distance and visibility of the crossings would certainly be a big consideration. Make sure there is adequate sight distance for the pedestrians to be seen when they're crossing the road. So that is an important consideration that would be fleshed out in the design.
Thank you.
Am I able to say anything?
Please go ahead.
The thing about the crosswalks, I don't want to get anybody thinking that I'm against the crosswalks. It's just that when I looked at the maps, when I was doing the survey, you have already a crosswalk with a flashing light down by Trailwinds. Then you're thinking there's a proposal to put one in front of the rec center, which is only about, I don't know, maybe 100 yards down. So now you have another potential stop. And then you have a curve coming down from Quamash on Lake Forest that if that backs up and I'm thinking more around the fall when the kids are coming out of school. So it's not all the time, but usually around the school period. And then you're having yet another crosswalk at Quamash, which is maybe another 100 yards. And then finally having another one over on Mimosa. The one good thing is it'll slow down traffic, but it usually ends up when you have something like that, because I've been in this neighborhood since '97, and it just seems to get people to stepping on the gas and going faster than the posted speed limit. And I just think there's a potential for problems, and I'm just wondering how you guys propose that and when you look through that.
Brent or Edinson?
Yeah, certainly. And great point. I think that's a great point to take as we start looking at a lot of the smart crossings or RFB. Certainly, there's a lot of taking into consideration, especially when we talk about compliance, whenever we cross, about how traffic reacts to those crossing. So we're taking consideration on a lot of this. We heard from the community the need of the crossings along Lake Forest, and that's why we're considering a lot of this location. Certainly, our traffic team is taking a closer look to make sure that the locations we're recommending aligns with what with the compliance and with the distance needed for making sure those compliance are not violated in the future by vehicles. So certainly great point, and we're taking a closer look, especially when we start looking at those proximity between each crosswalk.
Okay, and then the really quick on the storm drain, when you guys put in the sidewalk on Holcomb on the east side, when it went down to that intersection, every time we get rain or the snow melts, that whole area gets flooded, which also then comes up onto the sidewalk that is used by the bikers and pedestrians.
Okay, we'll be sure and make a note of that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Vern's comment or actually question in the chat. What about adding a bike pedestrian path between Amity and Holcomb intersection up to Federal Way?
This is Vern. Do I have a, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my thought there is you know, people are walking up that road and riding their bikes up that road all the time. And as it necks up toward Federal Way, as you know, there's hardly any shoulder there, and people walk right on the edge. And I think as part of this plan, it would be really helpful to provide a path for pedestrians, bikes to be able to get up to Federal Way. There's no public transportation up here, and so people have to walk to the Bergeson Federal Way bus stop or over to Fred Meyer's, and to be able to catch a bus, and even then just people just walking up to Home Depot or Maverick or wherever, and there's no path there, but people are on that road and it's way too thin. And they're on the shoulder, and there's been times in the morning in particular where I can't believe people aren't getting hit, bikers that are on that edge. And so anyway, just a thought that I think it'd be a big safety improvement to that section if we could get something in there. And I know it's tight, it's really tight in there. And but anyway, just a suggestion, I think, to improve safety.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to another comment in the chat from iPage. Will the Z Trail at Holcomb be paved? What is the plan there?
Yes, sorry, Brent. And yes, the plan at the pathway is to pave the path. In addition, look into accessibility improvements to make sure pedestrians and cyclists are able to use it without any major issues with that.
Thank you. Anita mentioned to us in the chat that she's been told by bicycle riders that they prefer the smoothness of a painted strip compared with a chip seal surface. What is our plan for the surface treatment?
Emily, this is Tim. Maybe I can step in and speak to this one a little bit. So I know that's probably true that, you know, the bikers a lot of times don't like to ride on the chip seal. It's rougher for them. So that's maybe the reason. This goes back to that conversation earlier when we were talking about they all want to ride on the white stripe, the fog line. I know ACHD's been looking at alternative treatments for bike lanes as opposed to chip seal. I know they've done several test cases in other areas, and one of them is that I know of for sure is on Executive between Cloverdale and like 5 Mile area, I believe. And I think that's been holding up well from what I've seen. And I'm guessing that ACHD is going to continue to look at alternative treatments, treat the bike lanes to keep them smooth, like maybe with a fog coat or a seal coat, as opposed to just a chip seal.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim's right. We are looking at different treatments for bike lanes. This is Meg, but also those, the more pavement markings, if it rains or if it's icy or anything, those get really slippery too. So it's actually the paint. Yeah, there's good and bad things about it.
Yeah, got to balance that for sure. Okay, we have a few more comments in the chat and then I think we'll wrap up. So from Travis, Linda, to answer what I think you may have been referring to at the time of your how does the question 1 differ from what is already there? The standard T option eliminates the curved car lane and makes it a 90-degree turn on Quamish and Lake Forest. So that area in the tan on both sides that they identify as buffer area are current turn lanes, but they are proposing to take those away. If I could add a snapshot here, I would show it. I don't know if Brent, you want to clarify. It seems like you're nodding your head.
Yeah, and if you go to the next comment,
oh yeah,
she
Travis, I was
clarifies
referring
Travis.
to the standard T at Holcomb and Amity. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so the difference here, there is currently a pedestrian hybrid beacon, and this would be improved to a full traffic signal here at
Okay.
the intersection of Amity and Holcomb.
Thank you. So we did receive a comment from Philip. Thanks for the info. Please consider widening the road north of the soccer field on Lake Forest to accommodate the parking and new bike lanes. So we'll make a note of that comment. And Michelle is agreeing with Vern. Thank you, Michelle. And lastly, from iPage, I also agree 100% with Vern about bike path on Amity to Federal Way. Someone is going to be killed if something isn't done. So we're definitely going to make a note of that comment. We really appreciate that from everyone. So we have gone a little over tonight, but it was a great discussion. And again, we'd like to thank all of our attendees for joining us tonight. Please take some time to go to the project website, seek out Edison's contact information, complete our survey. It will be open a bit longer. We really appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy days to join us this evening. Thank you again, and we will be in touch again soon. As a reminder, we did put a link in the chat at the very top that included our sign-in sheet link, so that way we know how to connect with you moving forward. Thank you again for joining. Please enjoy your evening. Be safe and be kind. Thank you so much.